Welcome to Crying Out Loud. I'm Dr. Laura Berman, and this is your grief companion. Join me to learn how to soften the pain, steady the nervous system, and connect to your loved ones on the other side. None of us were meant to grieve alone, so let's cry out loud together.
So I'm crying out loud, I'm not holding it in, I'm shrinking my heart.
There are some losses that change your life, and there are those losses that change who you are, that kind of loss that divides your life into a before and an after, the kind that leaves you with questions that it feels like no one can answer. How do you live with this? Will the pain ever soften? What do I do with all this love where it's nowhere to go? Well, my guest on this episode of Crying Out Loud has spent a lifetime sitting with those questions. Rabbi Steve Leder has comforted thousands of people through grief, heartbreak, illness, and death. He has stood beside families on the worst day of their lives and helped them find their way forward. But some of his deepest lessons about loss didn't come from his rabbinical work. They came from his own heartbreak. Rabbi Leder is the bestselling author of The Beauty of What Remains, a beautiful book that has become a lifeline for countless people navigating grief and searching for meaning after loss. And in this conversation, we talk about what grief reveals, why and how suffering changes us, the regrets people carry, how faith can be built and even survive tragedy, how to forgive, what to do with anger, and what remains when everything you thought you couldn't live without is gone. And most of all, we explore the question that every griever eventually asks: how do we keep living when someone we love is no longer here? This is a conversation filled with wisdom, compassion, honesty, and hope. It was such a joy to talk to him. So settle in, take a deep breath, and join me in my conversation with Rabbi Steve Leder. Rabbi Leder, thank you so much for joining us on Crying Out Loud. I've been really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, it's an honor to be with you, and it's important that we talk about these things.
I mean, you've been spending decades sitting with grieving families. I read your book many years ago. It feels like
The Beauty
of What Remains.
Yeah.
But I remember being struck that, how you describe how different your perspective became after losing your father. So you had spent decades already at the time you lost your father sitting with people in their pain. What was like some of the hardest truths you learned as a son that you maybe never learned as a rabbi?
Yeah. The Beauty of What Remains was framed as an apology to the literally thousands of people and families that I had helped through loss and thought I was doing a pretty good job. And I think I was doing actually as good a job as one could do when one is relying on vicarious experience rather than on one's own, right? And what I realized after, I was a rabbi for about 32 years and helped literally 1,000 grieving families through all that means. And then my dad died. And my dad died twice, actually, because he had Alzheimer's for 10 years. And we all know that that's its own kind of death. And then there's the death of the physical. And I realized the power of this old Yiddish expression, which I love, which is a half-truth is a whole lie. And I realized during and in the aftermath of my father's death that I had been teaching and sharing half-truths about grief because I didn't know the whole truth. And I only could learn the whole truth when I was no longer Steve Leder, the rabbi, and I was Steve Leder, the son. And that changed my perspective, deepened my perspective, and in some ways changed my perspective. I can give you a few examples.
Yeah, I would love to hear
make it more concrete. For example, my perspective and understanding of memory changed profoundly as a result of my father's Alzheimer's and his death. You know, rabbis and clergy in general, and I think all of us, to try to put a Band-Aid on the pain, we're full of platitudes about memory, right? Well, you'll all, he'll live on in your memories. And we say, may her memory be a blessing. And it is true that memory is very, very beautiful. But it is no less true that memory really hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
It's both. In the book, I say it's like being kissed and spat on at the same time.
That's a good metaphor.
Right?
Yeah.
Or caressed and spat on
Yeah.
at the same time. What death revealed to me is the true dualities that I had missed before. And one of those dualities is about memory. And I now find it helpful for myself and so much helpful to others to share and explore both sides of that dichotomous tension that we call memory.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing.
That's a big one.
Another thing is it really changed how I described grief to others. And I'll give you another concrete example.
Mm-hmm.
One of I would say the most difficult thing I ever do as a rabbi is to help parents bury a child. It's a level of pain that has no equal. And let's just say that I was working with you and your family and you had a child of yours die.
Which I did, Sammy.
Okay. So before my father died, I would have met with you and your family. I would have been involved from the beginning. And day of the funeral, I would be there early and I would sit with you and your family in the family room. And what I would have said, what I used to say was, Laura, the most honest and helpful thing I can say to you right now is it won't always hurt so much.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I used to say. Then my dad died.
Mm.
And I learned something about the wave-like nature of grief. Now, when I'm in that situation with a family, and were I in that situation with you today, I would say, Laura, the most honest and helpful thing I can say to you right now is it won't always hurt so often.
Yeah, that's a good distinction.
But when it hurts,
it could take you down for a bit.
It can destroy you.
Yeah.
And so this led me to this non-linear understanding of grief because I don't know how old you are. You're younger than I'm 66. My generation was raised under the tutelage of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross when it came. My generation of clergy, my generation of human beings, we were all raised under that groundbreaking work by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, whose books were more sophisticated than her titles, but whose titles implied, because they involve the 5 stages of grief, the title implies that grief is a linear process.
Yeah.
That we all go through. First you feel A, then B, then C, then D, then E, and then you're done. And again, her work is more sophisticated than that, but the title implies something quite linear.
And the way most people describe it or teach it makes
Correct.
it linear. Yeah.
Correct. And what I find to be a much more honest and helpful metaphor is a wavelength, not a linear construct. That grief comes in waves, and these waves can be very large, very aggressive, and very close together at first. And eventually, the sets grow further apart and are often less aggressive.
Yeah.
And that being said, it is also true, much like the ocean, you can have days, weeks, months, years of calm, beautiful seas. And then one day your back is turned and a rogue wave of grief rises out of the calm and takes you down
Yep.
and thrashes you against the rocks. And I find that to be a much more helpful way of understanding grief. Why? Not only because I think it's a more honest metaphor, but because we know how to deal with waves.
Yeah.
We know. So this is another big change in me, Laura, as a result of my father's death and the ensuing grief. My default setting was always, by the way, given to me by my very tough father. My default setting when it came to waves was, fuck it, I'm going to plant my feet in the sand, stick my chest out. I don't care if it's a wave of anxiety, a wave of hard work, whatever.
Yeah, grin and grit down and bear
I'm
it.
going to plant my feet in the sand, stick my chest out, and I'm going to take it. There's no wave is going to take me down. And then I experienced the grief wave. And I had to adjust. I had to make friends with a different default setting, which we all know. Anyone who's been to a beach knows that the better way to deal with an oncoming wave is to lie down and let it wash over you, and then just float with it until you can stand up again. That's the better default setting, particularly when it comes to waves of grief. And I had to learn to just lie down and float with it until I could stand up again. And I also learned that often when floating, if I would reach my hand out, there was someone sure-footed next to me who would reach back and help lift me from my suffering.
I love that.
This too, a major change for me.
Yeah.
And so, I wish there was some other effective teacher for all of us than pain, but I haven't found one.
Yeah. It's a really good one.
It's the only one.
Yeah. It would be nice.
It's the only one. Success doesn't teach very much at all.
No.
And even failure without pain, I got the math problem wrong. Failure without pain, failure's not a great teacher either. It's pain that is the great teacher.
Yeah. I love that. It's so interesting because I've never heard you describe that metaphor. Even I don't remember reading that in your book, and I love it. And one of the reasons I love it is that I have been saying something similar for years that I discovered. I mean, I was no stranger to grief when my son died, but as you said, that is a deeper and wider ocean of storms and grief than pretty much anything else. But what I would always say to people, so much so that we just had a grieving mama retreat with like 75 mamas. And one of the mamas who's been with me for years now and has heard this so often got a tattoo of this. I talk about how to survive grief, you have to learn how to be a consummate surfer. You surf those waves, right? It's the same thing. So she showed me a tattoo of a surfer surfing. And that doesn't mean you stay on the surface. It's kind of the same idea. You have to ride it. You have to ride it out. You have to let yourself feel it. And I also had this vision as you were describing the hand. One of my best friends, Maria, lives in New York City, but my son died during the pandemic and she was working from home and she moved to LA for 6 months to just walk by my side. And we also started this tradition then. So it's now been over 5 years. And every time she comes to visit, we go into the ocean, no matter what the weather is, and take 3 dips. We let something go. We, get clear on the present, and we ask, we call something in for the future. But that's what the tradition became, how it originated, because she's really, really tall and really solid, and I'm 5'3". And so the first time we went in the ocean together, I started to get pulled under.
You drifted away, right?
And she put her hand down and yanked me up. And since then, we always hold hands when we go in the ocean.
Yeah, look, there are a couple things resonate for me about that. First of all, the Jewish tradition of the mikveh, where we go,
Yes.
which is a ritual bath, looks like a jacuzzi in most cases without jets, but you immerse yourself 3 times, and often it's used as a way to let go of something.
Yes. Yeah.
The other thing is, back to this idea of pain, and we know there are many kinds of deaths. You know, a double mastectomy is a death. A divorce is a death.
Yes.
The loss of a reputation is a death. There are many kinds of deaths, and none of them are endured better alone. Why is it that Judaism commands that you cannot say the mourner's prayer unless you are with at least 9 other people and standing? Meaning, even when you would rather sink into the earth yourself, the sages say, stand up, look around at your community, and find the beauty of what remains. So I have learned, I'll just tell you about an interesting, is your PhD in psychology? Is that your...
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a therapist.
Okay, so this might interest you. If you put a gun to my head, I could probably find this study for
I won't
you.
do that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
More than 40 years ago, I read about a study that was done with college kids.
Uh-huh.
They took a bunch of college kids, took them one at a time and put them in a room with a chair and a bucket of ice water, and they timed how long each of these students could withstand the pain of their bare feet in the bucket of ice water. Then they took the same subjects, same bucket of ice water, same chair, same room, but they allowed each subject to invite a friend to be with them during the process.
Mm-hmm.
And in every single case, the subjects could endure pain longer because they were not alone.
Yeah.
The way the
100%.
sages put this,
Yeah.
I won't walk you through the whole conversation in the Talmud, but the way the sages put it, the punchline is, the prisoner cannot free himself. And the humility, the crushing humility of loss, ideally forces us to reach out.
Yeah.
And do
And I
you know
think
what's
that's-
beautiful?
Yeah. What's beautiful?
People reach back.
Yes, they really do. And, you mentioned this. I wanted to come back to it. So I'm glad you're bringing it back of letting others reach out and hold and support. That's so hard for most of us. I mean, you were saying it was hard for you and something you learned after your father died. It was something I learned after having lost both my parents and many others dear to me. It wasn't until my son died and a group of friends just all randomly from all over the country got together on Zoom, and they said to me, we're going to be back here every Friday at 2 p.m. Whoever can make it. And I was like, no. Like, that's too much of a burden. I couldn't accept it. I was
Yes.
taught not to be a burden.
Right.
And one of my friends, Karen, who I'll never forget, said to me, Laura, we feel helpless. Let us help you. It helps us to help you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
She understood how to sell the idea to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't about you, it's about us.
Yes. And in some ways it's true.
In some ways
know?
it's true, but
She was also yeah.
There's room in your heart to realize it was mostly because they love you.
Yes. I know that too. But it helped me as someone, who has such a hard, had,
Yeah.
I won't say that's true of me now, but had such a hard time.
And, we learn a lot from these things. And I would say the trap that I think a lot of clergy for sure fall into is that the upside of the downside is sometimes used as a way to say, but it all turned out pretty well. Look at you now. You got a book out of it and a podcast, and you now realize the value of friendship, etc., as if somehow it's worth it. And I think it's very important not to fall into that trap.
I agree.
It's insulting to our pain. It is untrue. The best way I found to look at it is none of what you have gained, Laura, from the death of your sweet son is worth it. However, what you have discovered is that you're not going to let it be worth less either.
Yes.
Like the way I put it in one of my books is, if you have to go through hell, and we all do, don't come out empty-handed.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I am sure you would take all of your insights and growth back if you could have your son back.
Oh, yeah, I say that all the time. Like this version, because I always say that grief is like a portal of transformation.
Yes.
As you're referring to it, that pain. And it
Yes.
burns away so much that you've been carrying that doesn't serve you and isn't the true you. And so I always like to say this version of me, because I am a totally different human pre and
Yes.
post, but this version of me, I like, and I liked myself before and felt pretty confident and empowered before, but this version I enjoy and like so much better. And I would happily return her.
Oh,
to
I would
my
return.
son.
I would return the new Steve for one lunch with my dad.
Yes. Yes.
One lunch.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be careful not to. And you're clearly not doing this, but our listeners, I think it's
Yeah.
important that we don't come off as somehow idealizing the tragic
Yeah.
or
No, it's that
justifying it
balance.
in some
Yeah.
way. You know, we would all rather go back to the day before.
Yeah.
And give
No.
up every gain. But we don't have that choice. You know, I often say to people who come to see me with some deep regret or sadness, I say, you know, I don't know about you, Laura, but personally, I've given up on having a better past.
Mm. Yeah.
You cannot, none of
Yeah.
us can have a better past.
Yeah.
And that simple insight, it's sort of a triage thing because I'm not a therapist. I don't have the time for it or the skill. So I'm really a triage mental health person.
Yeah.
You know, most clergy are frontline because you don't have to have a problem to talk to your
Yeah.
clergy, right? And it's free. All I'm trying to do is turn the person 180 degrees toward the future. And then the rest I hand over to skilled professionals like you.
Yeah.
But it's a blunt instrument, but it's very important to say, I don't know about you, but I've given up all hope of a better past.
Yeah. It reminds me of what I used to work a lot with Oprah when she would, had her show and everything. And I was doing a show with her. This was actually with, I mean, totally different topic, but survivors of male sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget sitting next to her. I think I was sitting next to her. I don't remember where I was sitting, but I remember looking at her and being like, whoa, that's what I'm going to remember. She said, forgiveness is just accepting that you can't change the past.
Yeah, the way I put it, when people come to me and say they can't forgive, they usually don't mean they can't forgive. They mean they can't forget.
Yeah, they can't let it go.
Forgiving is not the same thing as forgetting.
Yeah.
In fact, there are many offenses which I feel we are morally obligated to remember.
Yeah.
And so here again, nuance is really where the truth is found. And furthermore, at least from my faith perspective, you're not required to forgive anyone who doesn't earn it.
Yeah.
You have to earn it. There are literally 4 clear steps that are required in Judaism to merit forgiveness. So sometimes when people come to me and say, I can't forgive him, I say, well, why would you?
Mm-hmm.
He has done nothing to deserve your forgiveness. You don't have to forgive him. Why would you?
Yeah.
Now, the cool part about this is the flip side, which is where the sages tell us if a person has gone through these 4 steps, has sincerely changed their life, gone through these steps, apologized and created scaffolding so that they can look you in the eye and say, Laura, this will never happen again.
Yeah.
If a person goes through those steps and seeks your forgiveness and you refuse 3 times, the sages say the sin is now upon you.
For not forgiving.
Because being an unforgiving person when forgiveness is warranted is as terrible as the original offense.
On the topic of forgiveness, this comes up a lot in the grievers that I work with. There, the anger obviously is a huge part of grief that a lot of us, myself included, had to learn to get comfortable with in order to keep healing. But, when you can be angry at the person who didn't take care of your loved one as well as you hoped, or who harmed your loved one in a way that led to death. But I also feel that in so many cases, I would we're mad at the person who left, even if it wasn't really their fault. Like, even in my case, it's the anger is a little more obvious, but my son, a drug dealer got in touch with him via Snapchat and offered to deliver drugs to the house. He was stupid and curious and 16 and sheltering at home and accepted it like
I
a
would
piece.
remove stupid and just leave it at 16.
Yeah. Right. Well, same
Right?
thing, right?
Well, yeah. Well, yes and no.
Yeah. Well, no, I think good kids make dumb decisions like we just do.
Yes,
I did.
that's
That's
right.
for sure.
That's right.
And so he made a dumb decision, and a dangerous one, obviously, because it was laced with it was pure fentanyl. In
Yes.
fact, it wasn't even laced with fentanyl, and it killed him. But so I was, I'm mad at the drug dealer. I'm mad at Snapchat. I'm mad at the DA who didn't press charges again.
Yeah.
And I've been mad at Sammy, and that's understandable in some ways because he made a dumb decision. And
Yeah.
I also forgive him, and I'm also mad sometimes. But I talk to so many grievers who, like, let's say their loved one died of cancer or had such severe chronic pain and emotional pain, physical and emotional pain, they couldn't live with it anymore. And
Right.
they died of
suicided.
suicide,
Yeah.
and they totally forgive them. But then this anger comes up and they don't want to feel the anger because they don't feel like it's fair. I forgive him. I shouldn't be. And and I'm curious what you think about this because I try to help them dissect out the difference between blame and anger. Like, you can be angry and not even be blaming anyone. You're just angry because you don't have that person here anymore.
I can't tell you how many times people have come to me feeling like the victim of anger within themselves.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or another is treating them from a point of anger. And I say, something, when someone slams the door, they're not angry at the door. You're the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're angry at Sammy, he's the door.
Yeah. You're just mad that he's gone. That's a good
right.
way of putting it.
That's right. And it's a way that people can really grasp because we've all slammed a door and we know it's not the door's fault. We're just so heartbroken.
So I think obviously you are really uniquely positioned to dive into this next topic with me, which is faith, which I would say, a lot of people feel abandoned by God, after a
course.
devastating loss.
Yes.
I'm curious if you've ever experienced your own version of that kind of spiritual crisis. And also faith is something that I always joke, but I'm not joking, that like I grew up actually Jewish, but very, very secular, not observant at all. There was no religious practice or observance. It was more of a cultural thing than anything.
Right.
And in my family, my dad was God, and he was a really bad God. He was very, mean and controlling and toxic. And
angry God.
A very angry, punishing, controlling God, and not God, obviously. But I never grew up with any understanding or connection to a higher power. It wasn't probably until my 40s, so maybe 15 years ago, that I really started consciously building that relationship, which has taken years and is still slowly building. I'm just getting to the point where I can feel like I can have a two-way relationship here. So I wonder, there's like this faith bubble, my friend Bobby Vogel calls it, that you have to pop through in general, I feel, for people that just have faith. But I don't know. Like, I'm curious what you would say about that, and also about faith in the face of such devastating loss that can make no sense.
Let's start with this bubble piercing idea. The way I like to put it is, we toss around this phrase, a leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe anyone has a leap of faith. We take one step at a time. There's no leap. We take one step at a time through our lives, and it begins and slowly but surely reveals some force, some unifying principle to all of existence, some higher, greater, different power that is clearly beyond any human being's capacity to evidence, to prove, but cannot be denied. There's not a single person on this planet who believes they made the sunrise this morning. We all know there's something beyond us at work in all of existence.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing I would say to you is, I don't think people have a faith problem or a God problem. I think we have a psycholinguistic problem.
Okay.
Why? Because when we use the word God, particularly in Western culture, we feel like we sound like a bunch of people we don't agree with. So when people come to me, I don't care if it's a 13-year-old trying to get out of his bar mitzvah or a young mother whose son has made a terrible mistake in judgment and died. Wherever on the spectrum of pain, I don't believe that, when they say, well, I don't believe in God, I don't get defensive. I just say, well, what do you believe in?
Mm.
And Laura, I'm telling you, every single time without exception, the person goes on at any age to describe a very deep, beautiful spirituality and faith. They don't like the word.
I see.
And I don't blame them.
Yeah, I understand that.
So, I don't care if you call this a pen or a writing utensil or a bic or what. I don't care what you call it. We're all talking about the same thing. We're all talking about the great mystery beyond human understanding and human ability to fully grasp. And now, personally, I don't believe in a God that picks and chooses who lives, who dies, who this. I don't believe in that kind of God. Some people do. I don't think God is a puppeteer and humanity is the puppet in any individualized way. And maybe the best way to get into this is the book of Job, right? Which in my view is the singularly most important book in the Bible. I'll tell you why. Because until the book of Job comes along, the Bible's position is basically, God is not evil. What's happening to you isn't evil. It's punishment for sin. It's your fault. And we all know there are situations where the victim neither should nor can rightly be blamed.
Right.
Right? So the book of Job, the first verse says, and Job is an everyman, not a Jew. The first verse is, Job was a blameless man. Job did nothing wrong, and his whole life falls apart. Why? Now, the whole thing is obviously a construct, a mythical construct. And a myth is not a lie. A myth is a way of describing a truth.
Yeah.
So the book of Job is a myth. And in this myth, God is bragging to Satan, about his faithful servant Job. Look at my faithful servant Job. What a great guy. And Satan says, well, yeah, he has a great life. Of course he's a faithful guy. Make him suffer and watch what happens. He'll turn on you in a second. So Job's entire life is destroyed. He loses his health. His entire family dies. He loses his business. He's destroyed. And 3 friends come to visit him. And each of his friends are apologists for God. They all say to him, Job, you must have done something wrong and you're being punished for it. Come on. That's how it works. And Job insists on his innocence. He says, to the contrary, I've been good. And he rejects the standard justification for evil, which is, well, it's not evil, it's punishment. So Job takes his case directly to God. He says, God, I've been a faithful servant. What the hell? Why are you doing this to me? Now, does God get defensive? Does God defend God's self? No. You know what God basically says, and I'm obviously paraphrasing?
Paraphrase it.
God looks at Job and says, are you big? I am. Do you keep the ocean in its shores? Do you make the sun rise and set? Did you scatter the stars like diamonds across the sky? Try it. In other words, and the other thing, this is a very profound line that many people miss. God says to Job, I make it rain where no man lives. Now, what is the point of that verse? I make it rain where no human being lives.
Because you don't need human accolades to
That's
Doesn't
part of
matter.
it. And also because human beings are not the center of my
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah.
Gnats, lizards, toads, they all matter to me.
Yeah.
I make it rain where there are no people. Get over yourself. A little humility might be in order. You're only human and you will never understand it all. So now here's where the word comes in. Have some faith that there is a meaning and order to the universe, but you will never fully grasp it because you're only human. One of my favorite quotes is Marshall McLuhan, the Canadian philosopher, who said, I don't know who discovered water, but it wasn't the fish. Why do your clients need you? Because they're so immersed in their own reality, they have no perspective on it.
Yeah, they need that.
When does a fish discover water? When it's yanked out of it at the end of the hook, gasping for oxygen. That's when a fish discovers water, right? And so the average fish is born in water, lives in water, dies in water, and therefore actually has no concept of water. Well, we're like that in our own existence from God's perspective. Now, would I say this to the parents of a 2-year-old who died? Never.
No.
It's not helpful. I would handle it differently. But this is us talking on a meta level about theology.
Yeah.
Really about what we call theodicy, God and the problem of evil.
Yeah.
And I think both, it's a psycholinguistic problem when we talk about God. Just use another word, nature, science.
Universe.
Who cares? I don't care what you call it.
Yeah.
And the limits of human understanding about our own human condition. And again, I would say we are all believers. We
just don't know it.
Well, we do know it if we can remove the language barrier.
But what about that all makes total sense with me. So I should say, and what about, there is an element of, I find, and it was only, well, maybe it was all planned, right? Who knows? I'll find out when I get there.
Know.
But I had been taking this deep dive, as I said, about up to probably 10 or 11 years before Sammy died. So I was already kind of primed and in this space of a deeper connection to a higher power, which I think was a huge blessing and a huge comfort because, and I was still learning. I've learned even more since then about how to lean. The only way I can describe it is lean into faith.
Yeah.
It's like a surrender kind of.
There's much, much in existence that is out of our hands.
Yeah. And so that aspect of faith, of leaning into it in your loss, you talk about taking that one step at a time. To me, it's so, and once again, it doesn't matter to me what you believe in or what your religious, or like you said, it doesn't matter. But I do feel like even if your faith is in quantum physics and energy can't be created or destroyed, but only change form, how do you take those first steps?
Well, you don't. Those you're usually kind of tripped or thrown down the first few steps.
Well, because you said one step at a time, so I was wondering.
One step at a time, but the first few on your journey are usually not by choice.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then you have to keep taking steps forward, or you die.
Yeah,
you either die spiritually, physically, or both.
Yeah,
and if we can get people past these common objections, like people will say, like, Job, I've been good. And I would say, look, expecting being a good person to protect you from evil is like expecting the bull not to charge you because you're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
It's not how it's not how it works. Goodness is its own reward. It's not a protection.
It's not transactional.
It's not a vaccine. It's non-transactional.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, very gratifying. And so I find that if we can break through these fundamental objections with some clarity, it makes this one step at a time path a lot easier. And I think what you discovered with your friends on that Zoom is what theologians call an axis mundi, a place of connection between the earthly and the divine. Now, actually, we handle this religiously even in our symbology. If you think about the cross for a moment, what is a cross? It is the joining together of the vertical and the horizontal into one. What is the Jewish star, the Star of David? It's one triangle pointing down and a second triangle pointing up superimposed upon it. It is, again, the connection of the earthly and the divine. And the more open we are to that, I'll tell you what's coming to my mind. I'm thinking a lot about my dad lately because I know Father's Day is coming. My dad and I, we either worked together. I went to work with him if I wanted to see him, but every summer we went on a 3 or 4 day fishing trip. And I remember on one of those trips, I was a teenager. We're speeding along the coast of Vancouver Island, searching for salmon. And my dad looks up at the coastline, the trees, the rocks, the crags, and he was not college educated. He was not a deep, profound thinker. He looked over at me and he said, God is the best florist.
Aw, I love that.
As in, no human being could possibly be this great.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of connections between the earthly and the divine, the immanent and the transcendent, that fill our souls and fill our spirits.
Yeah. I mean, I did not understand. I never got, and frankly, chalked it up to the religious institutions that I felt were traumatizing in my world.
I'm sure.
But
where did you grow up, by the way?
I grew up as one of 2 Jewish kids in an entire town in the Bible Belt of Southeast Georgia.
What was the town? What was the town?
It was called St. Simon's Island, Sea Island. It was off the southeast coast
of Georgia. Got to be a saint, of course, too. Yeah.
And it was right on the Bible Belt, and it was real bad. But so this idea, this word grace, to me was affiliated with the church, and the church was affiliated with all the ways I was rejected.
That's right.
And
that's
abused.
Of course. And that's why the word God is a problem.
So for me, it was grace. Like, I didn't understand grace. I did not understand grace until after Sammy died. Yeah. And what you were just describing, that is grace.
It's a moment of grace.
Yeah, it's a moment of grace. And that to me has been one of the biggest feeders of faith.
And you know what? And often it takes a wound, a gash, to open us to that reality.
Yeah, I agree. I call them AFGEs, another freaking growth experience that breaks you open and apart.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Death is a whopper of one.
But I'm going to tell you something I find very powerful and very beautiful.
What?
That relates to this idea of brokenness.
Yeah.
So there's a verse in the Bible that says God puts God's words upon our hearts. So the sages have a whole conversation about this. Like, why upon our hearts and why not in our hearts? Certainly, if God has the power to place God's words upon our hearts, God could just put them like fluoride in the water, just put them in our hearts. And I won't walk you through the whole argument, but here's the conclusion of it. The sages conclude God puts God's words upon our hearts because it isn't until our hearts are broken that the words can enter. Which is this beautiful, I think, counterintuitive notion that we're only truly whole.
Yeah, isn't that or the Japanese tea art, Kitsunguri, or Tony, or what's his name? What was that singer who said the cracks are where the light come in?
Well, actually, that's Leonard Cohen, but he's actually quoting an essay by Emerson. So Emerson says, there is a crack in everything that the Lord has made. In other words, there are no perfect forms in nature.
Yes.
And then Leonard Cohen adds to it, there is a crack in everything. And then Leonard Cohen's gloss on it is, and that's how the light gets in.
And that's a version of what you're saying. That's what it reminded me of.
Exactly right. And would we rather live in the dark? Hell yes.
Yeah.
But we don't have that choice. And so in a weird sort of way, we are more whole when broken.
Yeah, I agree with that. Not that we wouldn't give it all back, but I agree with
Right.
that.
But so this is kind of
Yeah.
that's what opens us up. Now, Judaism doesn't quite have the same concept of grace, because grace in my understanding of the Christian concept is that it's always there and readily available. You just need to breathe it in like oxygen. In Judaism, grace requires something of us.
Which is?
Well, it might be repentance. It
I
might be counting our blessings. It might be many things. Like Judaism is a long list of prescribed behaviors.
It comes as
all
act
of which
from
are
action.
meant to open us.
Yeah.
Now, and this gets us to the issue of prayer, which you probably don't want to get into, but let me just tell you that a lot of the rubber meets the road when people say, this happened to me. What am I doing in church? Praying.
Yeah.
What am I doing in synagogue? Praying when my son died. And that reveals a misunderstanding about the nature of prayer. And it makes prayer impossible if you don't get past that misunderstanding.
Okay.
So
What
here's
is
the
it?
misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Most people confuse a prayer with a wish, and they are not the same thing. The English word for prayer comes from the Latin word precari, which means to beg. So basically, that understanding of prayer is that we're imploring God to change the laws of nature and humankind in our favor. Grant us a wish.
Mhm.
God is clearly not in the wish granting business.
Clearly
If God
not.
was in the wish granting business, I'd be 6'5" and I could dunk and shoot a 3-pointer, and every
Yeah.
fish would be a 35-inch brown trout on the end of my line. God is so clearly not in the wish granting business, but we pretend as if.
Uh-huh.
Now, the Hebrew word for prayer, tefillah, comes from the verb to turn inward, to be introspective. It's a reflexive verb. It is something we do within.
Okay.
So there's a really nice little example from a 17th century, I think, might be 18th century Italian rabbi. He describes a scene of a fisherman in a boat on a lake, and the boat is tethered to the shore, and the fisherman is pulling the boat to the shore. And the rabbi says, now, if you knew nothing about the physics of the world, you knew nothing about gravity, nothing about, you arrive from another universe and you see this, you might think that the fisherman is pulling the shore to the boat. And that's the mistake we make with prayer. We think it's about pulling God or the divine or whatever down to us. It is not. Prayer is not meant to change God. It is meant to change us.
Makes total sense to me.
And once you get that, you can hold more tightly to your faith when the waves come, not less. You
Yeah.
can let more in, not reject. But we do have these barriers because most people are operating as adults in the world with the theology of a 5-year-old, because no one has taught them anything else.
Yeah. It makes
And so
sense.
they're
We're not
angry
taught.
and disappointed.
So what is one thing, that you want, understanding that most people are feeling that? What do we say to them?
Count your blessings.
Count your blessings. Okay.
It's
'Cause there are
hard.
many.
Gratitude, count your blessings. Look around you. Be aware. We're all, like the way I like to put it is, we're all standing knee deep in the river and dying of thirst.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of us. And Jewish prayer is essentially about, if I gave you a prayer book and said, cut them all out with a pair of scissors and group them by genre, you'd have 3 genres. The first would be a huge pile of prayers that are about gratitude, thank you prayers.
Mm-hmm.
The second would be prayers of awe, like, wow, isn't that amazing? Look at that tree. Look at this piece of fruit. Look at that flower. Look at that child. Look at that tree. Look at those stars. Wow.
Yeah.
A third genre would be this tiny little pile of what we call petitionary prayers, asking prayers. Some sneak in because we are human and you never know. Maybe there's someone up there on our side or out there on our side. But the vast majority of prayer at its best is about gratitude and awe. So I would say, if you want one single thing related to this whole concept of prayer and etc., count your blessings.
Your
A
blessing.
traditional Jew says no fewer than 100 blessings a day.
Yeah,
And
I have
many of
witnessed
them,
that.
many of them over the most ordinary things.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's the definition of spirituality. This understanding that there is no such thing as a small blessing. Every blessing. Jews say a prayer, a blessing before we eat a piece of bread.
Or before you wash your hands.
Before you wash your hands. Why
Yeah.
a blessing over something as ordinary as washing your hands and eating a piece of bread? Why?
Yeah.
Because if you can be grateful for that, imagine your gratitude for the greater things in life.
I also think all of those, because I lived for a while, even though I'm not observant, I lived for a while in a very Orthodox Jewish community, which was fascinating.
I mean, it definitely organizes the chaos of your life.
Yeah. And I was so fascinated. And what I also noticed watching, I didn't participate. I almost felt like an anthropologist, even though I wasn't, but was how present you are when
if you are required to pay attention, that generally results in good things.
Yeah. So let's focus on this question of continued bonds and what that looks like.
We know that bodies die and people die, but love does not die.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah, we know that.
So there is a kind of immortality to love. We know, and I'm a guy who has literally seen 1,000 dead bodies. And it is so obviously not the person. It is so clearly an empty vessel. There is so much more to us than our bodies. I have to stop there because I don't know where, how, what that energy is about. Does it exist independently? Does it return to the source of all? I don't know. And frankly, there's only one way to find out, and no one can come back to prove or disprove any of this. But I can tell you, having seen dead bodies 1,000 times, including my own father's, that is not who we are.
Right.
That is a
I would
vessel.
agree.
So that we know. Now, these experiences, I have heard too many to dismiss them as some kind of weird projection. And I would even go further to say, let's say it is some kind of weird projection. Oh, you see a butterfly and you just think it's your dad. You know what? Projections are real. It's my projection. It's like saying, oh, that was just a dream. It's not real. Yeah, dreams are real. I had it. I remember it. It's real.
Yeah.
It may be a projection, and maybe I'm imprecise in my use of that term from a psychological standpoint. You would know better than I.
What you mean.
But even if it is my projection, it's my projection. It is my connection to my dad. So it's real. Like, leave me alone. It's real.
Leave me alone.
Shut up. It's real for me.
Yeah.
Just like my dreams are real. Even though you can't bottle it, you can't hold it. It's real.
Just because it's not in 3D. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we all understand that things can be real despite our inability to see or hold them. Just when I teach this to little kids, I just dissolve a bunch of sugar in a pitcher of water. And I ask them to taste. They go, oh, it's sugar. It's sweet. I said, well, I don't see it. Where is it? Well, you can't see it. I said, well, then then it's not there. And then, yeah, it is. And we play a big game, you know?
Ah, that's cute. I like that.
And then we transition to touch your nose, touch your ear, touch your chin, touch your love.
Because you can't see love. Yeah, you can see love in action, I guess.
But we know it's real.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of where I come down. I'm much more interested in what we can know than what we can't know. You know, it's like God says to Job, you'll never understand it all, but there's certain things we can know and feel that are very real. And so that's right now in terms of an afterlife. Who knows? I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it or worrying about it. I spend much more time thinking about the end of my physical life because that's the only thing. You know, it's another one of these dualities, Laura. The fact that we die means life means nothing, and the fact that we die means life means everything.
Yep.
It's both.
Yeah.
And imagine if we didn't die. Imagine if human beings were deathless creatures. We would cease to be human. Life would have no meaning at all. No one would have any ambition. No one would get married. No one would have children. It would be something other than human life if we were deathless creatures. It's only the fact that we die that gives time and life meaning. There is no other reason.
Yeah, that's a beautiful concept to wind down on. Just that one last question would be just this, that if you could leave the griever listening in with us right now, maybe, one key, there've been so many truths here, but just like one key truth about loss and healing and love.
I know exactly.
What?
I would talk about the 23rd Psalm, which you may not think you know, but you do. It's the one that starts, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
Yes.
He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul." Most people think we read that psalm at funerals because it imagines death as this kind of peaceful, euphoric eternity, like lying on a beautiful green lawn by a beautiful calm lake. And that is certainly part of its appeal. But I think the real depth of that poem is that verse that says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me." Why? Because the brilliance of a shadow as a metaphor for grief is profound. How so? If you think about a shadow, no matter how long, no matter how dark, a shadow is actually proof of light. You cannot have a shadow unless there's a powerful light shining. It's obstructed, like in the psalm, it's the sun obstructed by the mountains,
right,
creating a valley of the shadow of death. So death and grief, they are love obstructed, but not gone.
Yeah.
And this is faith, because we walk through that valley in faith. The sun is actually still shining.
Even if we can't see it.
Even if we can't, in fact, no, well, we can
feel it.
we can see it because we see the shadow.
Yes.
Don't mistake the shadow for darkness. The shadow is proof of light.
Yes. I love that.
It's like an eclipse. Like, your thumb can eclipse the sun, but that doesn't diminish the power of the sun. It's your perspective. And so I think about grief as actually a powerful symbol of enduring love. And it also really hurts.
Really sucks. It's a miracle, both.
It's both.
Yeah.
And these are the dualities. I've come to the conclusion after 40 years of, being a rabbi and a dad and a husband and a son with a dead dad, that all of life is fueled by these dualities. The dichotomous tension of these dualities is literally the fuel of life.
Yeah, I would agree. That makes perfect sense to me. I could talk
that
to
makes
you.
two of us.
Yeah, I know it makes two. I mean, because I'm fascinated by the dualities of it all. I could talk to you for hours. I so appreciate the time that you've given us. I know how busy you are.
I'm the lucky one. Thank you. Really.
And if people want to find you, we'll obviously put your books in in the show notes. Is there anything else you want to make sure?
My main thing is Instagram right now. So just at Steve_Leder.
Okay.
And right now I'm doing a thing called Preach, where every Wednesday I drop a 90-second sermon based on a request from someone to address a certain topic or question or whatever.
Oh.
So I'm in the bespoke sermon phase of my life.
90-second bespoke sermon. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, I'll be watching them. Maybe I'll send one in, a request.
Hey, please do. Please do. Okay? It's just great to talk with you today. And I'm glad we could honor Sammy too at the same time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening and crying out loud with me. If something you heard today helped or made you feel less alone, please follow, share, and review. And for more tools and a community that deeply understands you and your pain, visit the Grief Healing Collective at drlauraberman.com/grief healing. I'll see you next time on Crying Out Loud.
There's a hollow in my chest, where your laughter used to be, space at every table, an empty seat I see. The woman I was before you left didn't make it through, but love is still alive in me and still there between us two. They say just let it be alright, just keep your pain inside. But love this deep and pain this true were never meant to hide. So I'm crying out loud, I'm not holding it in, not shrinking my heart or the shape I am in. If grief is the echo of love that resounds, then I will warn you crying out loud. Ooh. Some days grief's a tsunami, some days it's just a wave, some days I'm barely breathing, some days I feel so brave, but I am learning slowly what the breaking's about. The only way to freedom is fear.